The Galactic Empire prided itself on maintaining order across its vast territories. Order, however, often meant tyranny. On a forgotten agricultural world on the fringes of their domain, an old man, Elias Kane, stood accused of harboring insurgents. His crime was merely offering shelter to travelers, a common courtesy in human tradition but deemed treason by imperial decree. The execution was scheduled at dawn, carried out without trial. A squad of imperial enforcers, clad in cold, gleaming armor, dragged Elias from his humble home as the village looked on in horror. He didn't beg for mercy or plead his innocence. Instead, he stood tall, his weathered face calm, even as the Empire's executioner read out the charges in a voice devoid of emotion. "You've made an enemy you cannot defeat," Elias said, his voice steady and resolute. "The blood of the Kanes will not be spilt in vain." The commander in charge, Valrix, smirked at the statement. To him, humans were insignificant, a scattered, broken species that posed no real threat. "Let that be your final delusion," Valrix replied mockingly, signaling the firing squad. The execution was swift. A flash of plasma burned through Elias' chest, and his lifeless body crumpled to the ground. A cold silence blanketed the village, broken only by the commander's voice ordering his men to burn Elias' home as an example. The Empire didn't tolerate defiance, however small. In the crowd, a young villager named Dara watched with clenched fists. She had known Elias as a kind and generous man, someone who gave freely to those in need despite his modest means. His death was a shock, but his final words lingered in her mind. She knew they held significance, and she intended to find out why. The enforcers left as abruptly as they had come, leaving ashes and fear in their wake. Dara slipped away into the woods that evening, her heart pounding with purpose. She carried with her a single hollow chip Elias had given her weeks prior, with cryptic instructions. "If anything happens to me, bring this to Adrian." The name was spoken in whispers among the village elders. Adrian Kane, Elias' estranged son. He had left the colony years ago, vanishing into the galaxy with a reputation that ranged from war hero to myth. Some claimed he had joined the resistance. Others believed he had become a ruthless mercenary. Whatever the truth, Dara felt certain of one thing. Elias had trusted him with something vital. The journey to reach Adrian was perilous, requiring her to navigate imperial checkpoints and traverse treacherous wilderness. But the thought of Elias' lifeless body and the Empire's cold disregard for humanity fueled her resolve. As she disappeared into the night, carrying the hollow chip that could ignite a storm, the Empire remained oblivious to the reckoning it had set in motion. Elias Kane's death was a spark, and sparks, under the right conditions, could set entire empires ablaze. Adrian Kane stood at the center of the command chamber, a stark contrast to the chaos of the battle raging outside. His piercing gaze scanned the holographic map of the battlefield, noting every movement of enemy ships with the precision of a master chess player. Commands were given with calm efficiency, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. His soldiers obeyed without hesitation. Adrian's reputation for victory, no matter the odds, was legend. When the final enemy vessel was neutralized, a rare quiet settled over the room. Adrian turned away from the map, his face unreadable. The room buzzed with restrained celebration, but Adrian remained still, his thoughts clearly elsewhere. Moments later, an aide approached with a grim expression, handing him a data pad. "Sir, it's urgent," they said, their tone filled with unease. Adrian accepted it without a word, his eyes scanning the report. As he read, his grip on the pad tightened, and for the first time in years, his stoic mask cracked. The news of his father's death hit harder than he expected. Elias Kane, the man who had shaped Adrian into who he was, executed by the Empire for a crime that was no crime at all. He hadn't spoken to his father in years, not since their falling out over Adrian's decision to leave the colony and join the resistance. Yet the weight of Elias' loss pressed heavily on him, stoking a fire he had long kept under control. He dismissed the room with a curt order, his soldiers sensing the storm brewing beneath his composed exterior. Alone, Adrian allowed himself a moment of reflection. Memories of his father surfaced unbidden. Lessons in resilience, shared laughter over simple meals, and heated arguments about duty and sacrifice. Despite their differences, Elias had always believed in Adrian's potential, even when Adrian doubted it himself. The holochip Dara had delivered was simple but powerful. A recording of Elias' final words addressed to Adrian directly. "If you're watching this, son, I won't be around anymore. But you've always been a fighter. You know what's right, and you know what to do." Adrian's jaw clenched as he replayed the message. His father had known his death was inevitable, yet he faced it without fear. That courage demanded a response. Adrian rose from his seat, his movements deliberate and controlled. He knew the Empire's arrogance well. They underestimated humanity at every turn, and that mistake had cost them before. But this was personal now. The fire Elias had lit in him as a child had grown into a blaze, and Adrian intended to unleash it. He summoned his officers, laying out a plan that was as daring as it was devastating. The Empire thought they had silenced a lone man in a distant colony, but they had unwittingly provoked a force far greater than they could imagine. Adrian Kane, the ruthless human general, would show them the cost of their hubris. There would be no mercy, only justice. The Empire was vast, its fleets unrivaled, its grip seemingly unbreakable. Yet Adrian Kane had no intention of matching their strength. He would exploit their overconfidence, their blind faith in their own invulnerability. Where the Empire saw a monolith, Adrian saw cracks, and he knew exactly how to break it apart. Gathering the scattered remnants of humanity's forces was no small feat. Decades of imperial oppression had left humanity divided and fractured. Adrian moved swiftly, leveraging his reputation to bring rival factions together. Some doubted him, others feared his methods, but his conviction was undeniable. He spoke of Elias Kane, not just as his father but as a symbol of what the Empire sought to crush: humanity's unyielding spirit. Slowly, the fragmented resistance unified under his leadership. Adrian's first target was a critical Imperial outpost, a station controlling hyperspace routes to several key sectors. Its destruction would disrupt Imperial supply lines and force them to divert resources away from the frontier. But more importantly, it would send a message. Humanity was no longer content to survive. It was ready to fight. The plan was audacious, even reckless by conventional standards. Adrian used outdated freighters retrofitted with hidden explosives and cloaking devices. They approached the station disguised as merchant vessels, slipping past the Empire's formidable defenses undetected. His fleet held back, waiting for the signal. As the freighters docked, Adrian's voice came over the comms to his hidden operatives aboard. "No hesitation. No retreat. Light the fire." The explosions ripped through the station, disabling its defenses in an instant. The Imperial garrison, caught completely off guard, scrambled to respond, but it was too late. Adrian's fleet emerged from hyperspace, descending like a storm. Humanity's ships, smaller and less advanced, moved with precision and purpose, striking key systems and avoiding unnecessary losses. Adrian commanded from the bridge of his flagship, orchestrating the battle like a symphony. His tactics were ruthless but efficient, leveraging the Empire's rigidity against them. Where Imperial captains followed protocol, Adrian anticipated and outmaneuvered. He exploited their predictability, turning their own strength into a liability. The battle was over within hours. The station, a symbol of Imperial dominance, was left a smoldering ruin. Adrian's fleet withdrew before reinforcements could arrive, leaving only a single transmission broadcast on all Imperial channels. The message was simple: "We are humanity. We are here to reclaim what you tried to take. You cannot break us." The impact was immediate. Across the galaxy, whispers spread of a human commander who had humbled the Empire. To the oppressed, Adrian Kane became a beacon of hope. To the Empire, he became a specter of rebellion, a name spoken with both fear and anger. Adrian knew this victory was just the beginning. The Empire would retaliate, and when they did, they would bring their full might. But he welcomed the challenge. Every move they made in anger would expose more of their vulnerabilities. Every overreach would weaken their grasp. The fire had been lit, and Adrian Kane would ensure it consumed everything standing in humanity's way.